Sure. And while I'm getting the presentation set up, I'd love to know who is here. I can't see a participant list, so if people can drop in like who they are, where they are, if they're in a school, an organization, I'd love to know, who we're talking to. And if you have any specific questions along the way, you can either jump in or just put it in the chat. Either way is cool. Okay, go back. Of course, I'm in the middle of the presentation. Here we are. Okay. So we are PA Youth Vote, and we're a coalition of students, teachers, and organizers. Started off in Philly as Philly Youth Vote, and we're expanding out now kind of in concentric circles around Philly and across the state to really try to engage students through their schools and also through their school districts, focusing on changing the youth culture and youth policy around voting. Um, so we're nonpartisan. Like I said, collaboration, elevating student voices, getting students ready to vote in all elections with values and anti-racism, community-based work, fairly funding public schools, voting rights, accountability for politicians to our young people. We really do try to empower students to be the leaders in the organization. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the ways that we can do that. I think, Ibithal, this is your slide, right? You ready to go?
Yes, I'm ready.
Cool.
Okay, so with PAU vote, something that we really really admire about it is the student empowerment. And with student empowerment, so our team is led by a group of change and driven, passionate and active students, free and empowered to work to bring our perspectives and ideas to advancing our team and communities. And what we usually do is work peer to peer. That's what I like about just the community that's in PAU Vote, is how there's a lot of connections that could be made, and just reaching out to like other students about ways that they could also become civically engaged and also become involved in the work that we're also doing. And going from student to student, like new generations, and getting familiar faces and being able to connect with other students is something big that we're really big on. And just being more engaged in our communities, and also building teams in schools. So our team strives to create individual voting education, engagement, empowering teams, and across the Pennsylvania. Sorry, like for example, the voter engagement team that I'm involved in also has like a connection with PAU Vote. So stuff like that, like implementing those kind of like opportunities to be like in different schools, and any opportunity to get students involved. And also going into classrooms, so, and which is really crucial because this reaches more students right where they are in classrooms. So in our effort to educate and empower the youth, we discuss with classes the importance of voting, what different elections mean, and how the students can take steps of actions in their own way. And our current students are also available to come into into your virtual classrooms, or to connect you with your students to teach them about how to spread civic engagement in classrooms across your own school, so you can also do what we're doing too. And for what we do, a lot of it stems from like different we divide the work up into different parts. So for example, we have the social media committee, where there's through platforms like Spotify, podcasts, and and Instagram, we connect with other students through a familiar outlet. So trying to like meet students where they usually are on a daily basis. And this aims to be relatable and appealing in order to help students understand government processes and that may be otherwise difficult to understand. So we try to make as much understandable, and also with civic engagement, and also just anything about youth in general that we can find. So not just like about politics, but just having any way to connect them through podcasts, social media, and teams. Yeah.
Thanks, Ibithal. So a couple of the other things we do are candidate interviews in classrooms. We partner with Committee of 70, which is another nonpartisan organization, better government organization, to connect particularly state politicians to public schools. We want the politicians to go to the schools, into the schools that are underfunded by the state legislature, so they can see the conditions that students are learning in or trying to learn in, and teachers are teaching in. And students can ask them direct questions about issues they care about. So, we feel that it's not really an issue. It's not really a problem of students being disengaged. It's really a matter of politicians being disengaged with our young people. And we need to kind of change their habits as well. We do a lot of community involvement. We do street theater. We're performing on the steps of the School District of Philadelphia to try to ask them for a voter registration policy, which I'll talk about shortly. And like I said, one of our big focuses and our values is to address the incredibly inequitable school funding system in the state of Pennsylvania. These are not just the city schools that are underfunded. They're underfunded in rural areas and suburban areas. Over 80% of schools in the state are underfunded, many by over $5,000 per student. So, and that's a statewide issue. But there's 179,000 students who turn 18 in public schools every single year. And if they turned out to vote, we would have a big change, and we'd start to see some fair funding in public schools, as well as other issues that attention to other issues that young people certainly care about. We focused on, and Ibithal and Casey both spoke at the school board meetings in the past year to talk to them about creating a voter registration policy. There are 500 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania. We just passed the first one in Philly, and it's the largest school district. So we hope to take this on the road and really get other school districts to pass these policies. So we believe in sort of a grassroots, bottom-up movement, but also we need policy created at the top levels to really create permanent cultural change in the city. We're also focused on the anti-voting legislation and pro-voting legislation. There's both actually in the state legislature. Across the country and in Pennsylvania, there's at least 30 bills in the state legislature right now that affect voting in various different ways. So we're working on a little bit of a red light, green light type campaign to discuss those. I can play this short video. Red light. Red light. Okay, so the point of this is to really focus on. There's issues that affect everyone of all ages, but there's a lot of issues that are particularly harmful to young voters, like having required signature checks and verification, and voter ID laws. A lot of young people don't have ID yet, and that would disproportionately affect them. Oops. There we go. Obviously, as an educator, we work a lot through educators. I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit faster now because I want to save some time for other people. There's also some statewide things happening at the state level, including the Civic Engagement Award that's sponsored by the Pennsylvania Department of State, working with them as to provide that incentive to schools and to students, and lots of different toolkits we put together. All right, and then we hope that you'll all join us. Sign up if you can at payouthvote.org. Plenty of ways, plenty of other organizations that we work with too. And there is our info. And I will leave that for a second, and then I'll stop sharing. I'll also put this in the chat is what I'll do. Casey, did you ever get working? No. Your silent partner.
Casey, I swear to goodness you were unmuted for a minute. You had little green dots. I saw it.
When you first came in.
I saw it with my own eyes because my first question, I'm really excited about the presentation, and I really wanted for the two of you that went and spoke to the school board. I was very interested to hear you all discuss what that was like, how it felt, what your message was, and how it went. I think that's really cool.
Thought, how was that for you?
Yeah, for me, it was very nerve-wracking. Like, I was nervous throughout the whole thing because I was just like scared. I guess just like talking to like something like this big. I've never actually like did a testimony or anything like that. So I was just nervous throughout all of it. But just like going through my like speech and like understanding what to write, I wanted to make it as personal as possible. So that's something that I really like focused on. So like for example, just like opening with it, like I said, like how like for example, like so I was 16 by then, and like just saying like how I started like work around like 16 years old, and like how even though and I'm 17 right now, and even though like I can't like vote or anything like that, how I'm like I still want to keep myself engaged with voting. And I guess also just saying how like it's important for also youth to vote, not just like adults or so, and how we're just like underrepresented in really just the whole system overall. And something that I really wanted to like emphasize is like just being able to give other students the opportunity and like being able to like really teach them about like elections or about politics and everything like that, to kind of give them that option. And then I feel like then that leaves them the option on whether they want to vote or not when they're actually equipped with the background information and knowledge. So yeah.
And did you feel they were immediately receptive when you guys came in and spoke, or were they kind of? I'm fascinated by this. Or were they kind of like, oh?
I would say it was kind of like, I don't know. I feel like it was kind of like mixed, really. Like, I don't know. I really couldn't like tell like just how they were like feeling to see whether they were receptive or not. But I would like to think so. I would like to think that they were like really engaged in like just the whole idea about voting and everything like that.
Poor Casey, man. She's still on the struggle bus. I'm sorry, Casey. Listen, the moment you have those little green dots, I'm stopping everything, and the floor is yours. I wish there was some way I could make it work. So at what age do you normally start speaking in classrooms about voting? Your org specifically.
Yeah. So, oh, sorry, Mr. Quinn, did you want to take this on?
No, go for it.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Somebody's at the door, so I'm going to have to go get it. Give me like 1 minute, I promise. I'm sorry.
I got you. I'll cover you. So I guess it's sort of a question for all of us. I know that my high school a long time ago didn't cover it at all, and I didn't vote until I was I guess it was my would have been my second semester of freshman year in college. And I think that's a pretty typical experience of a lot of students in high school. Only about the Pew Research did a study, then they found that only about 6% of people were ever asked to register to vote in school, which is just terrible. So I think that's probably pretty accurate. Now we work with teens at all, basically, in high school, any age. Of course, we focus most intently on the seniors who are turning 18, because you can't register unfortunately, we don't have early registration in Pennsylvania, so you have to wait till after the you have to wait till right before the election where they're going to turn 18 in order to be able to register them. Go ahead, Ibithal. What was your experience?
Yeah, I kind of was just also gonna like add on to like what you just said about just like really focusing on seniors. Definitely like starting just throughout high school and making sure that like, because even though, yeah, like you said, how they have to actually be 18 in order to actually vote, but it's important to actually have that background information in order to like actually know what to expect or what to know once you do turn 18. So it's definitely good to like also reach out to like 9th and 10th and 11th graders and get them also like even also just like also like engaged in like political organizations and programs, or just like the voter engagement team at like my school, stuff like that. So also reaching out to them like in that way to get involved, if not to vote. And
Yeah, Ibithal, you've been active since you were at least like 15, probably, maybe even earlier, right?
yeah, around 15 or so.
Yeah.
When you are doing voter engagement work in your communities, oh yeah, Casey says sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing work in your communities, your in your schools, what are the biggest pushbacks that you get, and how do you deal with them? And if you guys could go like round robin and answering that one, I'm really interested to hear what everyone has to say.
Okay, I guess I could start off if that's okay. Okay. I would like immediately when you ask that question, all I could think about is like, for example, whenever like going to a classroom and just seeing like nobody raise their hand whenever we say, okay, so like who's interested in voting, or like just the lack of interest is like, oh, like I understand that they also don't have that kind of like understanding or like see the importance of it in order to like actually care about it, just having that information. Okay, and stuff like that. But I would say that's definitely the biggest pushback, just like seeing like other students not engaged, and like that just makes me like want to see like more like education around politics and education about voting and stuff like that more in place into schools to make it more accessible for students to actually care about it.
Carson?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, and you sound good now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, my internet cut out, but is it my turn?
Mhm.
Great. I have a very short PowerPoint. Is my screen sharing?
Yeah, I have some very serious concerns that the audience cannot see past all of these little squares. So if everyone could turn off your like leave, hit leave while Carson is screen sharing, and then when Carson's done screen sharing, share your video again. Does that make sense? So you see the little button on the top that says leave? Yeah. No, I think, but Carson left. No, she's back. Okay, good. No, she's not back. Oh, heavens. Okay.
Okay. Great. Let's try this again.
Mhm.
Okay, is it working? Can you all see it's still tons of, is it still tons of squares?
It is still tons of squares.
Okay. Let me see if I do this way, if this changes anything. And in the meantime, I can start talking about Vote That John. Vote That John is a youth voting organization dedicated to amplifying the youth vote in Philadelphia. Is this better?
We are getting there. Yes.
Okay. Can you all see it now?
Yeah. No. Hold
No.
on. Can we see Riley? Can you see Carson's screen share?
I see a bunch of squares right now.
If I put in the chat, I don't know if any of you all are able to pull it up. But in the
request access.
Okay, let me change the settings. Okay. See if that is better.
Riley, I'm going to leave and let you handle this. I'll be back.
Okay. And in the meantime, Vote That John is a youth-run organization that started off as a sort of smaller collective at Penn dedicated to reaching high schoolers and college students, and has since grown to include students from all over the city. Vote That John is dedicated to really thinking sort of from a lot of different perspectives about how to amplify youth voices, about issues that youth care about, and also getting out students and first-time voters. So over the past few years, we've done that a bunch of different ways. One of my favorite ways that we've gotten out the youth vote is with social events. We've had voter registration drives all over the city, and often those have included displays of student art. We had some really incredible student violinists playing at some voting drives. We had students making TikTok videos to get out the vote. And so thinking about how voting and civic engagement can really be a social and collective experience that mobilizes people to want to work with one another to change Pennsylvania through voting. And we also do a lot of education campaigns. When I was in high school, I don't know if I knew I was eligible to register to vote until I was a senior, and definitely didn't know about the importance of things like local elections. I had a sort of one-dimensional perspective on the power that the student vote had. And getting to work with Vote That John really showed me that students, and especially students voting in large numbers, can have such an incredible impact, and that really extends far past national politics, and that local elections is often where students can have sort of the most voice. And so being able to create infographics, TikToks, blog posts about the issues that we care about and about upcoming local elections, to help other students get involved, know the importance of voting, and know exactly what we're voting for. I think that connection between your vote as a young person and the future that you want to see, whether that's climate justice or criminal justice reform, better funding for schools, all these things can be accomplished through voting, but only if it happens in mass and only if people are really tuned in to what exactly they're voting for. So Vote That John's mission is really to accomplish that by teaching civic engagement in schools, but also encouraging people to use their creative side to get out the vote, to share their own knowledge about the process, and to amplify the voices of other youth, because when youth vote, the world can get better. So over the past few years, we've been really active, and as we look forward to more and more very important elections, we're excited about the work that we've done, and even more excited about the partnerships that we've been able to build with people like Mr. Quinn's students, with so many other youth voting organizations, not just in Philadelphia, but in Pennsylvania. And so that's a little bit about Vote That John, and I'll put our website in the chat. We're always looking for more people to be involved, so if you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out through our website. And we'd love for people to submit blog posts, follow us on social media, and help amplify the youth vote.
All right, thank you so much, Carson, for telling us about Vote That John. Everybody can come on back now.
Carson, so let's say that there are schools, say, and students in Pittsburgh or, Erie, or that would love to get involved with Vote That John. How would they go about doing that?
Yeah, well, the pandemic, I think, really taught us that everything can be done online. And so Vote That John is now primarily digital. And so just sending us an email or reaching out on social media, slide into our DMs. They're always open. And we'd love to have students guest writing blog posts, engaging with us on social media. It's really just as simple as reaching out. And I would say social media is probably the best way to reach us because we all are, for the most part, all students and always online.
Carson, does your organization do predominantly high school work, or do you also do college campus work as well?
So we do a lot of college campus work and started on a college campus. We're really interested in sort of bridging, sorry about my dog, the relationship between civic-minded high schoolers and college students, and thinking about how high schoolers and college students can work together to produce art, to get out the word about voting, and how college students can help educate high school students on getting out the vote and working sort of in tandem.
This is tremendous. I definitely am so excited based on the work that we've been doing in Western Pennsylvania to kind of fold some of these things together and connect the folks in the West with what you're doing out in the East of the state. So my question would be the same for PA youth votes is so let's say there's educators who are viewing or students. How could they get involved?
So we have a couple different programs that we are we're trying to fund both educators and student organizers to do the work very specifically in their schools. So if a teacher wants to do voter registration and engagement, we think that should be something that is paid for ideally by the school district with public funding. Because it's a civic responsibility, and it's our job as educators to really help students with that civic skill. We've gotten the school district of Philadelphia to pay teachers to do that, and we would love to see that happen in other states. But in the meantime, we're willing to fund selected schools. We're focusing on schools that have like high minority populations, or I should say Black and brown student populations, and low income and underfunded school districts. So if you're in a school district, particularly right now in the areas in the counties around Philadelphia, we're targeting certain schools in those areas. We hope to expand that out to counties around the state, where we can fund teachers and students to become what we call voter champions or voter organizers to do that work. And then, follow, if you are able to download that data for your school, you can get 90%, 95% of your students registered. You can get, 75% of those students to turn out to vote on election day, which is typically much higher than even the general population. So, that's what we want to see happen. And that's the type of work we're doing.
Paul O'Hanlon asked in the chat about the basic education circular regarding voter registration, which I can't open right now. However, I'm assuming. Oh, and then another policy in regards to charter and cyber schools. Is this something you're familiar with, and do you feel is not being carried out? Because that wouldn't be surprising at all.
I'd have to see the, is this the voter registration policy proposal saying that students with IEPs need to be given access to voter registration? I don't know if Paul's able to come on and speak. Is that possible, or is that?
I think we could bring him on. Paul, do you want to come on? You have to request. If you request to share video and audio, I can bring you on so you can talk about that.
And then the second question, oh, I see. Okay, it's a second, it's not a question, it's an access to it. While he's
because
coming on,
I definitely think that's an interesting thing to talk about. And like I said, Paul is welcome to request video access in the Paul. That's in the upper right hand corner of the screen. If you decide to do that, I'll let you in.
I can address something that I think this might be relevant to, because there is, so for students that are, school districts are required by state law to provide voter registration access to any student who has an IEP or individual education program, special ed students essentially. Students can comply with that, or school districts can comply with that by basically just providing it to all their students, which is what we promote. School districts really should be doing this for all students, and then ensuring that students are basically prepared for adult life. So I think I'm not familiar with the charter and cyber school policy though.
Yeah, and oh, Paul, we got him. He's coming. Here he comes. You can have this discussion. Where'd you go, Paul O'Hanlon? I thought I gave him permission. And I lost him. If for some reason that didn't work, do it again. Because he popped up for a moment. This platform is a little goofy. I'll be the first to admit it. While we're waiting to see if Paul can get on up here, Carson, I want to circle back around to that question I asked in the discussion we were having a bit ago about what kind of pushback you receive from your peers when you are trying to register voters.
Yeah, I would say there's not so much pushback as sometimes people just don't know, even that there's a local election coming up. So it's more about starting the conversation than it is overcoming apprehension. I'm from Florida originally, which, is not exactly well known for its voter access. And I think often it's difficult for students, unless you have programming in your school that's sharing this information with you, to know that it's your time, that you can register to vote, that you can be getting your friends to vote, that even if you aren't old enough to vote, there's nothing stopping you from still getting involved in elections and in civic engagement, sharing your opinion on issues that matter to you. And so I think it's more about getting the information out there. I think very rarely once we found when we start the conversation, people don't want to get involved or to get registered even right then and there. People will just register to vote on the spot, add the election day to their calendar, and get started. So I think it's more about sort of walking over the threshold than anything else.
Do any of the three of you ever encounter the kind of, and I'm only asking this because I heard it a lot on campuses. Obviously, I am not a young person. So I'm wondering if your peers share this with you. But I did hear a lot of kind of ambivalence around politics where it's, well, I don't see why I should vote because you know, both parties are the same, or it doesn't really matter. It's all just the powerful people at the top. And so I wasn't sure if you guys ever heard this because I was actually looking for some advice on talking points to push back against that because I have my own thoughts and talking points, but very clearly to reiterate, not a young person. And so I would love to hear your perspective there.
Yeah, I guess I can start off by saying that yes, I've definitely heard that like a lot. Like just talking to like my peers or my friends and stuff like that, and definitely just hearing like it really just comes from really not knowing enough in order to make their own like opinions about like voting and stuff like that, or having that kind of idea about like whether or not they want to vote or not, because they definitely do see that it's that like yeah, they definitely would see that it's not important because like I don't know, I guess also because that's how, also because I'm thinking about like before I got involved, I would think like, oh, like I mean that just sounds like more work to do, to just like look into like the elections, what election is coming up, or the candidates. That just sounds like more schoolwork to do, and that's just like something that I don't want to do, you know. And yeah, I feel like that's also the mindset of so many other students and so many of my peers, just like, oh, that's just work, and they don't see like that the importance of it, because whenever you see like any kind of like policies or any kind of like laws that get sent out, it's aimed towards like adults, so they don't really see any representation. We don't have that representation or see like, oh, why would we care? I mean, it's not like it's benefiting us or anything like that. And also just like also how like adults would perceive the youth and like students. So like for example, not giving like the youth us vote, just like our opinions or like hearing our voices. So we're like, I mean, they like just like belittling us, I guess you could say. So I feel like that also comes into play, and just seeing like we don't have like an importance in this big like, and just in the big picture, I guess.
I think that's a really great point about representation. And I think that's definitely something that you kind of have to overcome. And I think with that, just the time commitment, we're also used to things being at our fingertips. And sometimes voting, it seems like it might be a lot of work or just an additional thing you have to remember to do. And we found success with even just marketing how easy it is to vote by mail. Like you don't actually have to go wait in line necessarily, or just really putting out all the early voter registration and voting locations in Philly. It's not just City Hall. You can do it from your house. There's tons of places near you, and I think making that bar seem lower, something you could do walking by the mailbox on your street, was a good way to overcome some of that, not even hesitancy, just reluctance to do something that seems like just another task.
I want to add that Casey said that she doesn't hear that too much, but sometimes, but not too often.
Yeah. I think one of the things too we can do as teachers is really just sort of build it in at the 12th grade level. We have civics class. I think most districts have civics classes in 12th grade, but they tend to focus on mostly national sort of government structures and three branches and whatnot. There's not a whole lot of focus on well, what's going on in the odd year elections, the so-called off-year elections, and there's very little focus on how important those politicians are that we're electing, or really not electing, who are just like being elected by default because we're not showing up in large numbers. And so walking students, young people, not just high school students, but so many students go to college without any kind of training in this area. Through the process of what you need to have to register and vote, and how do you get yourself informed, right? What are really good nonpartisan sources you can use? How do you do partisan research into the candidates and parties' websites without, and enable yourself to see both parties' sides and make an informed choice? Like, those are things that are not taught annually. They're taught, presidential years. We do like a lot of debates around presidential politics, but we typically don't do that as much in these really, really important off-year elections.
Yeah, I have definitely found in voter registration work, and our young volunteers and partners on college campuses have as well, that there's, when we do encounter hesitancy, it's always coming from a perception of at the top level of politics. And I agree that focusing on, I'm a former municipal elected official, a local elected official, and um, from everything from wanting new public spaces, or for example, I can give an example from my time as an elected official. We had a group of students that wanted a skate park. They weren't voters yet. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. You have a right to be represented by your elected representatives, whether you're old enough to cast that ballot or not. You're still constituents. You're still community members. So yeah, what's Casey say over here? Yeah, we need to focus more on local. Yes. Students and just overall people tend to be more involved with things that directly impact them, people they know. Yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. I think that the work that you're doing directly in your schools, with that level of engagement even, is amazing, because I know that in a lot of small school districts across Pennsylvania, there aren't civic engagement groups within student bodies, and I think even just that kind of visibility, the visibility of seeing that some of your peers really do care, it is enough to kind of bring people out a little bit into space they wouldn't feel comfortable before. Yeah, I think that localizing things, though, is a really, really, really good point. I didn't know if anyone else had any questions in the chat. I'm gonna look. I know that I am really inspired by the work that you guys do, and how committed you are to it. And I absolutely hope that anyone watching, because this will be a recording too, so I'm sure that it will be seen after the fact. If you are an educator, please reach out to us here at Keystone, and so we can connect you all, so that we could grow these movements in your orgs statewide. What's Paul have to say here? How many times have you heard the phrase, in a recent poll of registered voters, polling is critical to political perceptions, and if you're not registered to vote, you don't get polled? Yep, Paul said, I think polling is almost as important as who you vote for. And unfortunately, in this media and money saturated political environment that drives pretty much everything, you know. So that is also a very good point. So for the students on the call, and Riley, I'm including you in this because you are still a student. So for the students on the call, and this is basically Keystone. I'm now mining you guys for ideas. What kind of events do you feel? And I want everyone who ever watches this to listen closely, because we need this all over the state. What kind of events and activities do you think lead to successful voter registration for high school and college students? And you guys can just pop off.
Okay, I guess I could start off. And for like just events and activities, like of course definitely like voter registration drives, but also like I feel like it's something that's really like helpful is having those conversations with like from peer to peer, student to student kind of thing, and just like saying, oh, like I don't know, I feel like it's always casual when you have that conversation, and which I like, and I think that's also really beneficial, and so stuff like that. And I know with like other organizations and like that I see, and I know Mr. Quinn can definitely like speak more on this, but like I see like with the acting about like the importance of voting and stuff like that, where they would get and students would get in, like just like dress up and stuff like that, and make like a whole kind of like play demonstrations. Like I just find that that's so cool to just bring voting to a whole new creative idea, like this whole creative way, just to show that like voting is not just like something boring, I guess you could say, or just like more work, that it is something important, and like here's why, like I guess just to grab attention. I feel like that's the thing that, if anything, is to like grab attention by through any like interactive kind of way. So also like with talking to like students about like issues that they care about. Like for example, I remember when Mr. Quinn, we did like making like pins and stuff like that. So like making pins about like issues that you care about, stuff like that, because then that shows like, oh, if you care about this issue and stuff like that, it does tie in with voting, and hear how it connects with something that you're passionate about, and seeing that, like I feel like, yeah, just stuff like that.
I think events where there's a strong sense of community really brings people together and gets them excited. I really enjoyed events where we had some kind of performance. Recently, John organized a toast to Harriet Tubman to honor her voting rights work. And there was a performance from Lorraine Cary's play, My General Tubman, that kind of kicked off everything. And you could feel everyone coming together around the performance. And then from there, kind of the excitement of getting to know everyone else there. So I feel like events where there's a core feeling of community really gets people fired up to get registered right now, and then to carry that energy after they leave to make sure they vote and share the message with their friends.
Yeah, Casey put in the chat here too. She says outreach in schools allows youth to speak to other youth whom they are familiar with and are able to relate to. That's such a key point. Because of this, students become more involved within their communities and are able to understand the importance of voter registration. I was introduced to a fellowship called Community Rising through other students. In the past summer, I became a Community Rising Fellow, which is a program under Bolt. And our co-panelist who had to leave to go to class is also the founder of that organ of Community Rising and Philly Bolt. So I'm sorry she wasn't able to be here. But they're doing like really important work with young people to teach them, really kind of bringing them to the heart of power here in the city of Philadelphia, to City Hall, to meet with politicians, and then to understand sort of like how to really organize around an issue, and have those peer-to-peer really organizing conversations. And this is not just about, organizing. Again, it's not just about organizing about one election. It's about ongoing capacity building in communities, which is why she calls it Community Rising. It's such an important organization, and the work they're doing is amazing. Youth United for Change is doing amazing things as well, working specifically with youth. Again, just giving them those very specific organizing skills, and both Casey and Ibethal are involved in them. I just dropped in a stepper about how to really get 90% plus voter registration in schools and get them to turn out. I think one of the things that we as adults need to do is to really just provide those spaces for young people, and then and the tools and some training, and then really kind of hand the wheel over to them. They really do fantastic work with those conversations, and that's what that brings other people along, because they're not going to listen to me. Like, you don't want to listen to me too long, so I'll stop talking pretty soon. But and then I think what the other thing we have access to that our young people don't is the data, right? As teachers, we can download the data that has students' birth dates into a spreadsheet. Share that with them, and then they can systematically and smartly focus on who's eligible to vote, rather than just kind of setting up a table and getting passersby who may or may not need to be. So kind of doing things in a systematic way, and adults sort of creating those spaces and structures for young people is what I think makes a big difference.
Listen, I am so impressed with this relational organizing. So, yay. It's really, 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 really impressive and inspirational. And like I want, can you guys come train people? Can you guys come train people in Western PA too? That would be fantastic. So I believe this is an hour-long panel, and I think that we're coming to the end of it, but I want to give each person a chance, a final chance to leave us with some thoughts. Girl Gov in Western PA rocks.
I was going to say Pedro has a question for us.
Oh, all right, Pedro. Is it in the Q&A?
It just
No.
says one more question.
Okay.
So he might be typing it out.
Pedro, you want to just come on? You can just come on if you request video. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Just a question. What is the coolest thing you have seen that motivated young people to go and register to vote and then vote? What is it? What is it that happened that was the coolest thing that you think that I want to do that to get other people motivated? If anyone can answer.
Carson, why don't you talk about like such the kind of like the art and the artistic things that Vote That John pulls together, like through creativity. I think that's the power of Vote That John.
Yeah, thank you. I would say I think the violinists who were playing at City Hall and at our voter registration events in the fall of 2020, that was so exciting. I mean, they were so incredibly skilled, and with them, we were holding, posters about getting out the vote, and it made voting really beautiful, and that was really inspiring to see people using their skills to motivate other people to vote. That was incredible. And then we have also done art contests with younger students, students who aren't anywhere close to voting, they're like 10 years away. And to see their artistic version of what it means to vote is really inspiring. And so that was really cool. And I think to see people like little kids being excited about voting, excited about the democratic process makes students my age think, well, I want to vote for myself, but I also want to vote for them. And so that was another really cool thing. And then Sheila Street, who's an incredible Vote That John youth leader, talked to Samantha Bee on her comedy show about the youth vote, and that was incredible. That was so cool.
I love this. I love every last bit of it. Okay, last question. Round robin. Round robin for anyone who's not old. What biggest misconception about young voters that you want to squash? Riley, you got one?
I really don't. I'm not sure because most of the people that I'm around here on my campus are like very, very into voting. So I don't know. I'm around very informed people. I don't think, and I'm in Pittsburgh, so I feel like in the city a lot of people here are more informed than they generally are from where I come from. So I'm really not sure. I haven't really been around people that are.
I think you did. You just made a good point, though. You made a good point, though, Riley, because Riley's originally from Warren, Pennsylvania, which is very small and
middle of nowhere.
And in the middle of nowhere, yes. And and no, I mean it is the conversations around rural youth organizing can be very different and have very large challenges because it is hard to get a mass of individuals together like you can on a college campus or in a larger school district.
I feel like there's generally just more respect here for young people's opinions than there are in smaller rural communities because from my experience, everybody is very stuck in their ways in a smaller community. So it is very hard to change people's minds. Whereas here, I feel like people are more willing to listen to what I have to say and what people my age have to say.
Anyone have a misconception they want to squash while you have the platform?
I guess going off Riley's point that young people aren't informed or that we just get, all of our news on Twitter. I feel like the people I know what kind of tomorrow they're voting for. And so I would shut down the rumor that young people aren't informed.
I also want to add a misconception that I would hear about would probably be that young voters don't care or don't know what they're doing kind of thing. And I guess people would say that just really because we don't have that much opportunities or that much tools enough to actually see the importance in voting and stuff like that. So I feel like that's why sorry if you hear my cat, he's running around. And so I guess that's probably why young people have a very low turnout rate. But I feel like we would care only if we had the right tools and opportunities.
Oh. And Casey says she agrees totally with what you just said. So listen, this has been amazing and wonderful. And I'm so happy to have been in this space with you all. And actually looking forward to talking further and seeing ways that we can work together across Pennsylvania to expand all these amazing things that you're doing and that you've learned. So we have votethatjohn.org. We have PA Youth Votes. We have Philly Bolt, which I can't wait to hear more about at a later time. And and Tom wants to uplift girlgov.org here in Western PA. So check out all those things. Look for further communication. I'm hoping that some of you will do a social media takeover for us. So just throwing that out there, so you can directly communicate with our social media audience as well. We would love that so much. And oh, Youth United for Change, absolutely, yes. And youthunitedforchange.org. And yes. And thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was fun.
It was very fun. Thank you so much. And listen, and anyone else listening, we have the PA Black Legislative Caucus coming up this evening. We have, oh, I don't know. We have so many good sessions. Tomorrow, we have a jam-packed entire day, and it is going to be very exciting. And I hope that since you all have registrations now, you'll hang out with us tomorrow too. And the Senate, there's a Senate forum this evening as well. So hope to see you guys all here. Hope to see everyone listening here. And this is being recorded, so hopefully it will get shared far and wide. So thank you guys.
Bye all.